Hi guys, and welcome back to another Broken No Game video. Today's video is dedicated to the Blood Gacha, otherwise known as Guild Boxo Grimoire. So on the left hand side, here are some tips that you can essentially go over from Twitter. But before we do that, let's just jump right into how to essentially acquire blood to do Blood Gacha. So if you go into menu, you go into notice, and then from notice, tap on events right here, and click the Guild Boxo Grimoire. And then the Guild Boxo Grimoire, it tells you exactly how to essentially it works. So you pretty much get blood by character blood or the Blood Gacha vials to summon via logging in and participating in Coliseum. You can see the breakdowns here essentially on what are the numbers to essentially acquire a certain amount of Blood Gacha. So if you lose, you get 6, if you win, you get 10. And depending on member activity, you get a certain amount of blood vials. And this kind of makes sense in the way where if you have more people participating, you essentially have more people who are going to be pulling, etc., etc. So the thing that I want to take note of is that it's going to be occurring from August 25th till September 1st. Those are the times where you can essentially summon, and then you can only acquire character blood or the currency to summon from August 25th to August 31st. So we're halfway into it essentially, and this is just a great way to help free-to-play players out, and I'll explain why later on. In order to access Blood Gacha, there's a couple of ways. So if you go into menu, you go into items, and then from items, if you scroll all the way down to the very bottom, you can essentially select the character blood, and you just tap on events. Here you are at the Blood Gacha. You can also tap on home, and on the 4th bullet down below, just keep scrolling. This is the Guild Boxo Grimoire, and that's how you access it. You can also tap your guild, and then from guild, just tap the Guild Boxo Grimoire, and here you are. So let's discuss some tactics on essentially how to be very efficient on the Blood Gacha. So if you tap the item list right here, you get a full breakdown of everything that's available. Now, the thing that I want you to do when you're pulling and you have a guilds, right? If you're a solo member, of course, this doesn't really apply to you, but if you have a bunch of guildie, this more or less applies to you. You have to keep track of, so for example, if someone pulls an SR weapon, they can return it for 30 Twilight Crystals. The thing to note is that once you pull 2 SR weapons, essentially you cannot return anymore. So you can't take advantage of this and do infinity amount of pulls and get 300, 500 crystals. They would never add a system like that, right? So you can only get upwards to 60 Twilight Crystals, and then after you return those 2 SR weapons, you pretty much keep anything that you pull forcibly. So ideally what you do is you keep track of each member's pulls, and eventually once they pull 2 of them, 2 of the SR weapons, then they pretty much stop until everyone else can start pulling, the free-to-play players get the weapons that they want. If no one really cares, everyone just keeps pulling, and it's a free-for-all, and essentially all these blood SR weapons are just used for fodder. Now the biggest things that I want to talk about is the main reason why you pull on Blood Gacha is because of the fodder material that you get in the sweet Nightmare EXP, right? This sweet Nightmare EXP and this Nightmare fodder, they are premium, right? These are very difficult to get. So these are the things that you actually aim for, as whether you're free to play or not. These are just amazing things because they're just so difficult to get, and this will give you a huge boost in power and a huge boost in Coliseum and story if you can evolve your nightmares, right? The ones that you need specifically for Coliseum. Ideally, you get as much of these as possible, and then everyone else can essentially use these for either gear or for fodder. It's up to you, whichever one works. But ideally keep track of your guild so that eventually everyone gets what they need, and then everyone just goes crazy on the nightmare. So the thing let's talk about is the weapons. And before we talk about the weapons, huge shoutouts to Whites on Discord. Thank you so much for providing me all of these links. Couldn't do this video without you, yeah? So I'll provide this down below, essentially the link for the Blood Gacha. And the things that I want to know is, let's do a breakdown on these weapons. Now, as far as these weapons goes, their stats are actually good for the specific type of damage they're dealing. So for example, this spear has high magical attack, it's very good. This sword has high physical attack. It's okay, it's not the best, but it's serviceable, right? It has I'm not sure why this staff has high attack, I don't understand that. The violin has decent physical attack, and it boosts physical attack. And then lastly, the tome has decent defenses, but for some reason it doesn't have the greatest of defenses. Not sure what's going on with there, but you know, still it has support boon 1, and it's overall like a decent SR weapon, especially as a free to play. Notice that the cost is relatively high, so as far as like these weapons goes, I don't really think they're that free to play friendly, because cost is a very like valuable resource in the sense that not everyone can just like have high cost. You have to do a lot of grinding to essentially get high cost. So you know, it's like debatable whether these weapons are like fantastic. Personally, I think they're great, but the thing is like this cost is like way too high. Most like some SR weapons, or some weapons that go from S to SR, are actually like 15 or 14 cost. So honestly, that or less cost like makes a big deal. And if you're wondering what cost is, if you go into gear, go into edit, and then from edit, you know, you have a little cost number right here, right? So essentially, that about covers it, like as far as like, you know, how cost and everything goes. Like overall, I think the Blood Gacha is like a welcome addition into the game. It helps pump more, you know, gear, it helps pump more materials into the game without having to be like, you know, too grindy, because essentially all you do is like log in and participate in Colo, and you get like summons on, you know, the guild box or grimoire. And I think like we need to implement more systems like this where we can help free to play players out on essentially like acquiring gear and everything, because gear is probably like the biggest like, you know, gate to progressing in the game. Is can you get good enough gear, and can you get the weapon EXP to level them? And if you guys want, I can do an updated beginner's guide, which I think we kind of need for the game, or at least how to progress like really quickly. But anyways, let me know in the comments. That's it for this video. Like, comment, subscribe, follow me on Twitch, follow me on Twitter. I'll see you next one.